Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you with my co-host, Hawkeye Two Feathers, David Null. Thank you for being here with me tonight. Oh, listen to that. No dog howling.
We got a call on the wolf. Yep.
There.
So,
yeah.
As always, greetings and blessings to all of you. And we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I continue to pray that each and every day that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, and the wisdom and blessings from the universe. And both of us hope that, that the stories and things that we bring to you on Tuesdays will bring some insight into previous lives and the pioneers and what it was like to be in America back in the day, and what it was like to be a true American. So, but back to you, Robert. What have we got for tonight? Oh, let me in on while I'm yakking. The story for tonight is The Boy in the Land of Shadows, and that's our story for tonight. And also, while I'm yakking, y'all start picking out your animals for the card drawing tonight. So
That's right. We're going to be talking about this guy right here. Let's see. They got new buttons on the thing. There we go. Christopher Guest. We're going to be talking about the story of Christopher Guest and how he may have actually saved our country, believe it or not. And how do you say that? Is because he had a run-in with George Washington himself back in the day. And Christopher Guest was a mountain man-ish kind of guy and needed some guide to take him to where he needed to go. We're going to find all about that tonight. And so who was all this stuff? And basically, before there were mountain men that went out west there was men like Christopher Guest, and he wasn't chasing gold or glory. He was measured in mystery. That's the thing. In 1750, we're going way back now, way back. In 1750, the frontier wasn't Wyoming or Colorado. It was Ohio and Kentucky. So if you live there, well, maybe you can see some remnants of those times in the wilderness. There was the Alleghenies, too. And the wilderness began right past Blue Ridge and beyond. And there lay French forts, native nations, and an empire waiting to collide. The natives against and French against the British. As remember, the states or the colonies, I should say, were still British run. The revolution, the independence hadn't even started yet. Well, Gist rode straight into it, alone, armed with a compass, a rifle, and the stubborn belief that he could find the way. Hired by an Ohio company, he mapped unknown, and he was hired again. He rode beside a 21-year-old George Washington. Well, Gist was doing, if you're wondering what he was doing, he was, we've talked about this before, he was doing one of the most dangerous jobs there was out there. And that was being a surveyor. And even George Washington was a surveyor for a while.
And also Robert E. Lee, but that was later on. But
yes, men could make a good living being a surveyor, but the problem is the Indians got a hankering and figured out that once a surveyor comes along, he may be one guy or two guys, but after he comes along, then the herd of white men come behind him. and they want the land right after. So if you get rid of the surveyor, the white men ain't coming. You see? So, they figured the things out. Well, anyway, on the way back, George from there, let's go back a little bit. He was hired by an Ohio company that he mapped the unknown. He hired again, and he rode beside a 21-year-old George Washington. Here's where he saves the world as we know it. Washington was delivering a message to the French that would help start the French and Indian War. On the way back, they nearly died, shot at by a false friend, trapped on an ice-choked river, frostbitten and starving. But they made it, of course, or we wouldn't be here right now. We would probably be talking French. Oui, monsieur.
Now, who was sick?
What do you mean? Who was sick? They were freezing, and
Right. So which one of them was sick, or was it both?
Well, George Washington.
Okay. All right.
George.
It wasn't clear as to which one of them was sick. So it was Georgie boy that was sick. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry.
Christopher Gist was the old scout who knew the mountains, and he was doing the surveying, and so he knew the land like the back of his hand. And old George Washington was just a snot-nosed kid, 21 years old. Okay, so tonight we're going to tell the story of the man who got him to where he needed to go and got him back. And that guy was Christopher Gist. He was an explorer, a surveyor, a guide, and the first to walk the map before it had lines. Well, anyway, a little bit about him. He was born in Maryland in 1706, so we're really going back a long way. But I figured it was fitting because, we're coming up on Thanksgiving here really soon. And, we need to get back to the East Coast a little bit. And he was the closest thing I could find him. There's a few more, but, he was way back. Remember, the Pilgrims were here in, the early 1600s there. So, this is just 100 years past that. He was hired by, in 1750, now he's about 45, he was hired by an Ohio company to explore and survey the Ohio Valley. Wow. So, he's in his mid-40s here. By 1751 and 52, he travels through present-day Ohio and Kentucky, records rich journal notes that, the guy who writes the story gets to be remembered. And if you could write, you were basically the guy, put it that way. The guy who can read, write, and do arithmetic gets paid more.
And he was more likely to be remembered.
Yeah, because if he makes journals, those journals go to everybody, and they make stories and things like that out of it. Well, in 1753 is when but at this point in time, he is what, 45, 46, something like that, 40. Yeah. 40. He's getting up there, put it that way. He's 40. 46, 47. He guides George Washington to Fort Le Boeuf, and he survives an ambush and an icy river ordeal. Okay, and then in 1754, he reports French troops' movements in present at the Battle of Fort Necessity. In 1755, he serves with General Braddock during the disastrous march to Fort Duquesne. And in 1756 and 57, he works with the Cherokee Nation, building British alliances. And in 1759, he dies of smallpox in South Carolina or Georgia. Okay. Who was he? What Indians would he be associating with? And he would be associating with the Iroquois, the Shawnee, and the Delaware nations while surveying the Ohio Valley. He also served as an Indian agent. I would imagine that he could speak multiple languages or communicate somehow. He was tasked with building alliances and keeping peace before open war erupted. He joined the Cherokee allies in the South late in his life, where he eventually died, and showing how vital Native relations were to the frontier diplomacy. His big battles. Jumonville Glen in 1754, Gist reports helped alert Washington to French forces. Fort Necessity in 1754, one of the first major clashes leading into the French and Indian War. And Braddock's expedition in 1755, Gist guided British troops through Pennsylvania wilderness. Only a handful survived when the campaign collapsed under French and native attack. Now, what has all this got to do, if you catch the dates, 1754, 54, and 55, this is about the time that the French and Indian War was rising up. In the 1750s, these people were fighting over land. They were, because of the beaver trade. It boils down to money again, everybody. It's just money. The natives had no money, and this was their form of trade, and how they would trade beaver pelts, deer hides, and so forth and so on for things that they desired. And with the French coming in and the British coming in, the British people were taking up the land, and then you don't have the land where the beaver are. And of course, you're hunting the beaver, and these people are hunting the beaver, and they're hunting the deer and the elk and whatever else is out there. And then you can't sell it when somebody else kills it and sells it. You see what I'm saying? So they joined the French, because the French weren't really trying to settle. They were just trying to trap the beaver and, things like that.
They were interested in the colonies as just that, colonies.
Yeah.
So that they could, exploit the natural resources, but they didn't necessarily want to move there. And the other thing that, obviously the Indians figured it out was that, these folks were literally stealing from them. They were, trapping the beaver, but the Indians were going, hey, wait, in a way, those are our beavers. What are you doing? And so, and they were collecting a bunch of them because they had steel traps, and the natives didn't, they had their own methods, but to the point. So here are these white men, taking almost twice as many pelts as the natives, and also the natives were looking at the pelts going, that could have been ours, that could have been ours. And that money and those supplies would have come to us and our tribe. So now they're, standing there going, I don't like this very much,
That's
and
right.
then those surveyors are coming in and putting up stakes, and then some more of them people come running in here, and so I can see where the native folks would be a little on the PO'd side,
Oh yeah, no, I totally get that. There we go.
I mean, it seems like, some people say, well, it was nothing more than some beaver pelts. What's the big deal? Well, because it was piles of beaver pelts. It wasn't just a couple on the back of a mule. Some of these folks had piles of beaver pelts. So, and it really did cut into the native economy, if you will.
Well, yeah, exactly. Got to remember that these natives, that was their source of income, really. They didn't have much else to trade. And like Scotty Boy had said here just a minute ago, no need for money when you live off the land. But that's the thing. They did live off the land, but they wanted that cloth. Remember, we discussed what was the most important thing they liked? Cloth. They wanted pots and pans. They wanted guns. They wanted, gunpowder. yes, and shot, and there was a lot of things that they that were better than what they had. And why stick with a bow and arrow when you can get a flint or a black powder gun that could shoot a deer 50 feet away, when your arrow would just never make it. So, and of course, if you're trapping the beaver, you need traps, and you need a lot of these things. And the natives wanted those remember, they were trading a lot for beads, colored beads, so they could make that wampum, and maybe by this time it was probably dying out a little bit. But the important part was they wanted to have what the white man had. And the only way to get what the white man had is to give the white man something he wanted. The only thing he wanted was beaver pelts. Right?
Yep, mostly at that time. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like you say, you get a notification. That darn YouTube. I just remember today is Tribal Tuesday. I searched for your channel. I found you live. Very strange. Yeah, that happens with YouTube. If they don't send out a new notification to you, sometimes you just miss the show. But I'm glad you're here, Lucky. I'm just glad you're here. Anyway, it is important. Okay, it says here, November 14th, 1753, Washington stopped in Willis Creek to finish his preparations. There he met a very important travel companion, Christopher Gist. Gist had spent several years traveling all over the Ohio River Valley, and he would serve as Washington's guide. Well, you know what? Let's dig deep into Christopher Gist, and let's start in the beginning. Now, I went through the timeline of, how things lined up with him, but let's get into the details. How did he get to where he's at? He was born in 1706 in Maryland. Christopher Gist learned the old trade of surveying, reading the lay of the land, and like a story written in the hills and rivers. But he wasn't a kind of man to stay behind a desk. The colonies were pushing outward, and the wilderness was calling. By the time most men were settling down, Gist was taking orders from the Ohio Company, a private venture of Virginia's elite who dreamed of claiming the vast, uncharted Ohio River Valley. Their job for him was simple, at least on paper. Go find us land worth taking. Doesn't that sound like the way it goes? This wasn't farmland and fence posts. This was wilderness. No maps, no safe trails, and no guarantees. So in 1750, Christopher Gist set out from the Potomac and rode west across frozen rivers, dense forest, and mountain ridges no Englishman had ever seen. He passed through the Ohio, crossed into what's now Kentucky, traded with the Shawnee, and recorded in all his journals. Sharp, observant, human. Those journals became his legacy, the first detailed English descriptions of the Ohio frontier. He wasn't just exploring land, he was exploring the very edge of the New World. Now remember, side note here, back in those days, you had the colonies, which were all owned by the king. And you had borders. Now, they had it set up pretty good to keep the Indians at bay by mapping out the colonies, and you weren't really allowed to go past that line and settle land past the boundaries. It was kind of a crime to do so. They let you, because it was the king's land. And if you go out and you're settling land, you're thinking, nobody knows who I am out here. Nobody will find me. But if they did, they'd burn your house down and take you back and put you in jail because, it's the king's land. And
or at the very least, they would confiscate it, or they would burn the house down and,
yes.
Confiscate the crops.
Yeah,
but to the point. So you might go out in the fringes of the, pioneer land and, you might not get caught. You got you an acre or two of land and you got your little cabin and there are folks that got away with it,
Yeah.
basically living off the land without without making a farm, let's say, it was just a small cabin and a yard and around the house kind of thing.
Yeah.
But those, folks who, um, sure enough, um, was, um, taking in the land. I'm trying to think of the word and I can't think of it. But anyway, so yeah, you had to make a farm and all that and prove yourself for 7 years, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I don't know why this is doing this tonight. Huh. This is no, I don't know why. Huh. This is different. Remove. Huh. I don't know why my remove thing is not working. Anyway, you're right. So why is this at the stage? Huh. Okay. It's not letting me add to stage. Oh well. We'll figure it out. So anyway, let's say we got to get on with this. I don't know why it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing, even though it's not on the stage here. Oh, I mean, I got to do it that way.
By this time, while you're doing that, by this time, the powers that be had not really set up the homestead rules.
Yeah.
You could get some land and you could buy it from somebody, or you could lease it from the king, but they hadn't really set up any kind of homestead rules yet because it still belonged to the king. We had not had the war, 1776 and all. But then after it was declared the United States, well, then property, became part of the United States. It was transferred from the king to the United States.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So we're ready to go here. There was a young officer named Washington. By 1753, the winds were shifting. The French were moving south. They built forts along the rivers, claiming the same land Britain wanted. Oh, there's always a conflict there. That's when a tall 21-year-old militia officer named George Washington showed up. And right beside him, riding through the snow, wrapped in a thick hunting coat, was Christopher Guest. Well, their mission. This is where everything in our country was saved. Their mission: deliver a message to the French commander at Fort Le Boeuf. Like my French, Fort Le Boeuf, leaving the Ohio Valley. It belongs to the British Crown. They rode through the wilderness, claimed by no one and everyone. Frozen rivers, hostile territory, and ever-present tension of war. When they reached the fort, the French were polite but firm. They had no intention of leaving. Yeah, I don't think they would, hey, I got a note here from the king. It says you got to move off the land. I don't think that would have worked so good. And we're evicting you. And this message alone could have started a war, but the real test came on the way back. The night the river froze. On the return trip, Washington and Gist were joined by a native guide who claimed to be a friend. Ooh, that's that is a good one. So anyway,
who claimed to be a friend?
Friend, yes.
Now, which river?
What?
Which river?
I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, well, this native guide was going to join them, and he was going to take them back because, you got to go through the wilderness. And in the dark woods, as snow fell quietly, that friend turned and fired his musket at them point blank. Go figure. Washington could have been dead right there. He was the one who kind of wanted to trust the native. But guess what? The gun misfired. Washington was one of the luckiest guys, I swear. He could have bought a lottery ticket every day of the week and won. But the gun misfired, luckily, and Providence saved them both. The man was trying to reload his weapon, and while he was trying to reload, Gist, of all people, made a charge for the native and tackled him to the ground and was about to kill him when Washington said, wait a minute, because he's young, he's 21, he don't want him just, because, Gist was like, hey, if we let him go, he'll just try to keep killing us. Well, lucky day for that guy, because Washington insisted that Gist let him go. And Gist says to him, he says, but he was trying to kill him. Oh, the Indians telling him, no, I was just shooting at a bear behind you. And Gist looks at him and he says to Washington, if he was going to shoot a bear behind us, why was he reloading?
Really?
Yeah. And well, that's when Gist got the jump on him, because those black powder guns, they it takes a little bit to load them. So
that's right.
Shots, Gist had enough time to charge the Indian and tackle him and stop him from shooting, and therefore they ended up letting him go under Washington's orders, and off they went. Now they didn't have a guide anymore. They were all by themselves. And this were so they took his weapon, but they released him, and he watched him vanish into the trees. But our deal wasn't over. Now that they're just two guys out there in the wilderness. When they reached the Allegheny River, so that's the river we're talking about, the Allegheny River. Well, it was clogged with ice and impossible to cross by ferry or foot. So they had to build a raft. This was back in days where you had to be really ingenious, because there was no bridges. And so they built a raft out of branches and ropes, trying to shove through freezing slush, and I mean, can you build a raft? I mean, come on, it's got to be one of those things. You just can't build a raft. It's hard to build.
I could, but other folks, they would have issues. So.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. Building a raft across a river in the middle of winter with, what do you have? You two guys out there. Do you got an axe? You got rope? How are you gonna make it float? What kind of logs are you using? They're using like branches and ropes, and I don't know if I'd even want to be on the raft. Well,
some of the rafts they made back in those days, they were pretty damn flimsy if they were just trying to get across somewhere, and they were like a one-time use. So, but yeah, they had to scavenge, and the biggest thing was, how much rope are they carrying?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, I carry 300 feet of rope with me all the time.
Yeah, and how thick was it, and how big was it? Oh my God, you carried that much rope with you all the time. But so yeah. With that said, I scratch my head and go, so some of the logs and some of the things that they did was they used counterbalance wedges kind of thing, sort of like the Chinese building some of their houses that are wedged together and one leans up and against another one. and there's a kind of bridge. Well, was it Newton or one of them guys? Anyway, that the bridge is held together by the next section, and the weight of this one pushes on this one, and
Yep.
then the next one is wedged in. So they used a lot of things like that where they would wedge a couple of logs together, and really amazing, actually. You know,
Yeah.
some of the stuff that they did.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's the thing. You use what you got. Susie Q says maybe they knew how to make their own twine or cordage. They probably did. It's just that
They did.
it's like, hey, let's find enough stuff to make some twine. And I mean, they don't have all the time in the world. It's November, December when they're going, and the river is full of ice. So yeah. Remember here, the Allegheny River, it was clogged with ice, impossible to cross by ferry or foot. So they built a raft out of branches and ropes, trying to shove through the freezing slush. So yeah, that ain't very fun either. Okay, so what happened there? Halfway across, the current snapped the raft, and Washington fell into the river. Our founding father, our first president, George Washington, fell into the icy Allegheny River at 21 years old. Well, talk about an ice plunge. The cold was brutal, life-ending kind of cold. Now remember, you're out on the river, you fall in, and it ain't like these cold plunges we have nowadays where you can just cold plunge, get out of the water, and run to the nice warm house with some blankets and sit by the fire for a while. You cold plunge, and then you're just standing out into the freezing cold weather.
Or you've fallen in the river.
Yeah.
And just is going to pull you out, but in the meantime, you're in the river, and that water is cold.
Yeah.
I have been in the river when it was cold, and almost drowned. There was no ice, but the water was about 40 degrees. So
Well, it would have been a lot colder than that if there was ice and slush.
yeah,
So,
but to the point that it hurts. It's so cold.
yes.
And you can't move. You're trying to, I kept thinking to myself when I was in the water, I know how to swim. I know how to swim. And I was making all the gestures, but it was like the water was thicker or something. And I was like paddling like hell. And I was like, couldn't get to the surface. And so I can imagine he fell in, and I bet you he went under, and that right there getting dunked and then coming back up. Holy. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. I am reiterating the fact that that's some scary stuff.
Yeah.
And it is very, very life threatening. That ain't no joke.
Oh,
He just didn't fall in water. He fell in a river with ice, in November when it was cold. Oh, golly. Ooh.
Yeah. So what happened here? Well, they managed to climb onto a small island in the middle of the river, and they huddled there through the night, soaked and shivering and half frozen. But Gist was smart. He knew the land and he knew how to make fire. Now they'd been soaked, and they, it wasn't like you carry matches with you. Gist gathered up while Washington was sitting there freezing to death. He soaked to the bone. Gist went ahead and gathered up small branches, twigs, and whatever he could find. And now remember, he's freezing, and they don't have thermal underwear like we do nowadays, or none of that. If the wind is cold, he's probably soaked. But he does have one thing. He has his gun, and he has powder, black powder, which was smart of him to keep that black powder in his horn or whatever he's got that was dry. He used that black powder by putting it on a little bit of it on the fire and using the flint and steel off of his gun to ignite the flames. And that was just enough to start a fire. And then he gathered up more wood, and between, doing that, he made a big enough fire that him and Washington dried themselves out and survived the night. Believe it or not.
Yeah, and they also did, each one of them, because they were pioneers and they never knew when they might get stuck somewhere. They all carried flint and steel, but back in those days, their guns were flint and steel.
Yes.
So,
so anyway, remember, they got soaked in the river. Who knows? They probably lost everything they had with them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be starved and frozen, They would have had supplies, but they didn't. They were just walking. And so by morning, the miracle came, and guess what? It was so cold that night that the river had frozen solid. Remember, they're on an island and they do not have a raft now. So they, Washington was thawed out, and they warmed themselves by the fire. And, if you got a big enough fire, you can dry your clothes out pretty good. So I'm sure they were, ready to go. And they walked across the ice to the shore on the other side. But of all things, Gist's hands were black with frostbite, but they were alive. And they carried the French message back to Virginia. And that spark would ignite the French Indian War. So there you go. That was kind of the big event there. If Christopher Gist did not know how to do all that stuff, he didn't know how to keep George Washington, a young kid of 21, warm and safe, and a Gist or a Washington might have had no hands because his fingers would have all had frostbite, and he couldn't have been the general to lead the American Revolution. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that could have played, but he might have went back to his farm in Virginia and just been a farmer the rest of his life, or he might have got sick and died. You never know. But he had frostbite already. He could have lost his fingers at the knuckles, and they could have nicknamed him Old Stubby, Yeah.
Or Stumpy, and it could have been so bad that he couldn't fire a gun, but yeah, so there's a lot of things that could have been.
Yep, exactly. So
the fact that he survived, falling in the river and drowning, back in those days, I mean, even in these days with all the things that we have, it's real easy to get hypothermia, and not survive. Once you start shaking and your teeth start chattering and you can't stop, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So if it wasn't for Gist knowing how to do that stuff, Washington might have not made it. He might not have been the president we know today. Instead of calling him George Washington, we call him, Stubby Washington.
Or he wouldn't have been around, and we wouldn't have called him anything at all except dead.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is that. So the fact that, unbeknownst to him, he saved a historical figure.
Yeah, he probably didn't even know he was, because at the time, it was many years later that Washington became president. But Christopher Gist would never get to see that. Well, what we do know is that when the war came, Christopher Gist was right in the middle of it all. In 1754, he warned Washington of French troops moving towards Great Meadows. The report that led to the bloody skirmish of Jumonville Glen, where the first shots of war were fired. And Gist fought beside Washington at Fort Necessity and later served under General Braddock in 1755, guiding the doomed expedition to Fort Duquesne near present-day Pittsburgh. When the British marched through those woods in red coats and drums, Gist was the voice saying, "The enemy's close, the trees have eyes." He'd learned from the land, but the generals didn't listen. Braddock's men were cut down, and Washington barely escaped alive, and Gist saw it all. You remember that trip, Braddock's Folly? Remember we talked about Braddock's Folly? You remember that one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
A little refresher for everybody else was, they were marching to go to the war, and well, they had to cross a river, and this is kind of where the defeat came. Is the Braddock says, "Oh, let's just march across the river," and some of the guys said in Washington, I think, said, "Hey, we should go across and check it out, before we get over there. I think the Indians are over there or something." And as the troops started marching, to go across the river, he says, "We don't need to check it out. Just go." As the troops went across the river, the Indians came out of the woods and cut them down in the water. And then, so it was, if you're in the water, you can't move very fast. You can't fire your gun. It's wet, yada, yada, yada. If you do make it to shore, and Braddock kept saying, "I got all these troops, march them forward, keep going. And he kept telling them go forward, and they kept getting cut down. And pretty soon the French and the Indians were coming across, and they were wiping them out because, they weren't retreating. So finally Braddock was shot, and Washington said, "Retreat, let's get back. This isn't safe. Everybody's dying." And Braddock himself got killed. So there you go.
Yeah, he was the kind of guy that was like gung ho, and sometimes gung ho means turn around and go back.
Well, yeah, and Braddock thought, "Oh, we're British, we can't be defeated. We got plenty of men."
That's right.
And like they say, "Oh, you're just cannon fodder. Get them men out there and walk across the dead bodies. Keep going, men. Don't let a few dead men stop you. Just keep going." And well, when the enemy's got the upper hand, you can't win. You know what I'm saying? You just got to know
that. And when you're was the river froze over, or were they crossing in boats?
No, the Braddock's war was, they were just walking across the river. It wasn't frozen or nothing. They were just walking across the water, or in through the water. It was probably waist or chest high or something.
And to try to turn around in water like that, and fight when you're chest waist high in water, that's impossible. And you're trying to keep the powder dry, and you fire once, and you're trying to reload in the river.
Yeah.
That insanity.
Exactly.
So yeah, that would have been rough.
Yeah, well, exactly. So like I said, it was one of the some and one of the other where is it? Anyway, you have to oops. Where am I? Back. There we go. You have to know when to quit. Well, let's move on. After the disaster in the north, Gist went south into Cherokee country. And by 1756, he was serving as a British agent trying to keep the Cherokee allied with the crown. It was there somewhere in the borderlands of South Carolina or Georgia that Christopher Gist's long journey ended. Smallpox took him in 1759, and the frontier claimed its own. He died far from home with no monument, no grave we can find, and the only trails he left behind. at least he made maps and ledgers. Christopher Guest's name doesn't show up in many history books. No marble statues, no Hollywood movie, although there are signs like this one we see here. But the truth is, he wasn't the man who led Washington west. He was one who taught him how to survive in the wild, how to read the land, and how to think like a scout. And without Gist, Washington might not have lived through that frozen river. And without Washington, America's story might have ended before it began. Like I said earlier, Gist, unknowingly saved our future present. And so the next time you think about the founding of this nation, remember the men who walked ahead of history, the ones who carried the compasses instead of the crowns, who carved their way through the wilderness, not for fame, but for simple faith that something greater lay beyond the next ridge. Christopher Gist was one of them, and the forest still remembers his footprints. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Washington. He was a young, back in 1753, he was a big guy. 21 years old in 1753. He was born in 1732. And he was born in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He grew up the son of a middling but ambitious planter family, farmers, basically. His father, Augustine, who had died when George was 11, leaving his family short of wealth, but rich in land and connections with pride. And by this time, Washington was tall. He was 6 feet 2 inches, if you didn't know, serious beyond his years and obsessed with the idea of honor, a man trying to climb from colonial obscurity into destiny. He wasn't yet a polished general. He was a young provincial officer, rough around the edges, but hungry to prove himself. Apparently, he had a big ego. Washington started as a surveyor, just like Gist did. And at 17, he was mapping tracts of land in Virginia's wilderness, sleeping under the stars, eating what he could trap, learning to read the land, and more importantly, learning to lead men into hard places. The skill caught the attention of the Ohio Company, again, another big company who runs the world, a powerful group of Virginia investors, including his half-brothers Lawrence and Augustine Washington, probably didn't even know he had brothers, who aimed to open up the Ohio Valley for English settlement. And through them, George was appointed as a major in the Virginia militia, despite having almost no battlefield experience. To a young man with ambition, this was gold and a chance to rise to serve the crown, to prove himself worthy of a command and title. Well, of course, we know about the Fort Le Boeuf expedition in 1753. In 1753, Governor Dinwiddie of Virginia gave Washington a mission that would shape the rest of his life. And that was, hang on a second, I got to shut this door. The dogs are so big. That was to deliver this message, which is in Pennsylvania, demanding that they withdraw from the British claimed territory. The French were building a chain of forts down the Allegheny and Ohio rivers, threatening British land interests. And that was more than diplomacy. It was a spark waiting for a fuse. And Washington needed a guide, someone who knew the wild country, the rivers, the native villages, and the French routes. And that's where Christopher Gist came in. Gist had already surveyed the same territory for the Ohio Company. He knew the tribes and could navigate by instinct. He was exactly what Washington needed, a steady hand in a deadly landscape. Of course, Washington pushed him hard. He had a big ego, put it that way. Washington at this point was earnest, ambitious, and a little naive. He wanted to serve honorably and prove himself as an officer and gain land and recognition. He had admired the British military idea, the ideals and discipline, uniform and courage. But he was also aware that the British treated colonial officers as second class. Wonder why that is. Privately, Washington was eager for action and perhaps overconfident, ego again. He kept a personal journal of his mission, noting every detail: the snow, the danger, the natives, councils, the icy crossings. And when published back in Virginia, that report made him famous almost overnight. He was trying to balance two worlds: the loyalty to the British crown. He saw himself as a proud British subject. Bet you people don't even realize that, that Washington thought of himself as a British subject. And then all of a sudden, he's the founder of our country. What happened there? We'll have to get into that one of these days. The frontier, he learned quickly that courage meant more than command, and that survival depended on men like Gist. You could say this was Washington's first test of manhood, and Gist was his teacher in the field. So, when we get all this through, it's so good that Gist was there. If you could peek into Washington's thoughts on the icy road with Christopher Gist, what do you think they would say? And he says, I must do this well, and the governor trusts me. If I succeed, my name will be known. He's also thinking, I must show these British officers that a Virginian can be as brave and as disciplined as any of them. Of course, yeah, and then he's probably thinking, this Gist fellow knows the land like the back of his hand. I'll learn from him. And then he's also thinking, if we fail, the French will have this country and there'll be no room for the rest of us. So what do you think was going through his head? I don't know. A lot of things.
Yeah, and one of the things is that they're starting to feel like Americans.
Yeah.
They're starting to feel like, well, wait a minute now. Y'all are going to take this land. And they're starting to, the British guys are like, we're going to go back. And Washington's like, no, I'm here to stay. And the French want to take it over. And we don't want to speak French, and so it's like, that had to have been going through his mind along with everybody else's, in that they were starting to think independently, quite frankly, without thinking about, the crown, and without thinking about the king. And it's like, why are we sending all of our taxes back to the king? Why can't we keep him here and do stuff with it, and so, yeah, there was a lot of, they had to have been thinking that kind of stuff.
Well,
they had to.
Exactly. I like the thought where it's talking about being a second-class citizen if you're not from being British, in the British military, being from the States, you're second class. And I think once you make that divide, then all of a sudden there's if I can't be a British citizen and a good member, I'm a second class citizen. Well, then I'll become my own, and I'll be a first class citizen. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And that's where the independence part probably came in, because nobody wants to be second. It's like that movie. What was it? If you ain't first, you're last. And that's kind of what it is. You're not first, you're last. And, so Washington already knew that he would never rise through the ranks, no matter how hard or he tried, because he was already second class. He was already a loser. You get what where I'm going with that?
Yeah, and because the British officers made sure that everybody knew it. If you're not a British officer of a certain class, of a certain rank, if you're just a sergeant, you're better than a private, but you got to have rank. And so here's all these guys that, are being told that even if you join the British you'll never have rank. And so therefore you will never have stature. And so they were going, wait a minute, this is a bunch of hogwash.
Yeah.
I'm just as good as those guys over there. And the British were walking around, with their chests pointed out. And then the guys are coming in going, what's up with these folks? Thinking they're better than us,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally get that. Let's close this out. Okay. So the point of all this is when you dig deep into the history, you realize it isn't always the loudest names that shape the world. And some men fought battles, others fought the wilderness. And Christopher Gist didn't build cities, he built direction. He didn't chase fame, he followed a purpose. He mapped rivers no one had seen, stood beside Washington before he was a legend, and helped mark the edge between the known and the unknown. And when the story was over, he didn't ask for credit. He just kept walking. That's the kind of spirit that this world still needs. The quiet builders, the guides, the ones who walk first so others can follow. So tonight, remember the man who walked before the maps were made. Remember Christopher Gist. And be thankful that you're here today, because if it wasn't for him, or old George wouldn't be around. He showed us that sometimes the truest explorers are the ones history forgets. And with that, we're going to turn to some of these pictures I got. And we're going to read some of the stuff because I'm sure there's markers out there. And this is one of them. It says the route through here discovered by Christopher Gist, April 1st, 1751. Brigadier General Garfield and 700 Union troops forced 500 CSA men. I don't know what that means. From here, March 16th, 1862, and burned the CSA supplies. On the last raid in Kentucky, Morgan's raiders dislodged Union forces here June 1st, 1864, and moved on to Mount Sterling, Lexington, and Cynthia. They then returned to Virginia. So all of that happened because Christopher Gist discovered this trail in 1751. Kind of interesting. There's George Washington in his younger years. He's not even all gray. Here's another one. Gist Plantation. Christopher Gist, the Ohio Company surveyor who went from Fort Le Boeuf with Washington, settled here in 1753. And in 1754, Washington halted his campaign here and retreated to Fort Necessity, pursuing French. The French destroyed the plantation. Oh boy. So Gist didn't really have much. Poor guy.
There's no picture if you.
Yeah, I can't read this one. So we're just going to have to skip it. There are some books if you like to know more about Christopher Gist. I'm sure he had made a lot of journals. So there's things, classic reprint series, Christopher Gist journals. So, look them up. They're probably on the internet somewhere. Apparently somebody wrote a book about him already. There's more about him. Anasoya, a novel based on the life of Christopher Gist. So, there's a lot of stuff out there about him. And he is not forgotten. With George Washington in the Wilderness, The Frontier Life of Christopher Gist by Paul R. Messick and Sally Messick. That's it. So, yeah. There you go.
Before he was a general, before he was a president, George Washington was just a...
Let's see. Go back. Oh, why isn't this changing up here? I just don't know why this thing isn't working. The image. I don't know why. I'm having difficulties tonight with all this stuff. Yeah, here's the book. There's the book. I don't know why this is not working tonight. Nothing is going as planned. But there's the book if you want to check it out. Let's try this again. Image. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Young George Washington. And yeah, screen shares. And there's a young George Washington. Here's another one, the Fort Necessity. I just read that one, sorry. I don't know why I can't change this. They did something different with the stuff here. So, but I did make a video, my AI video today.
The general, before he was a president. George Washington was just a young man riding into the unknown. Beside him rode Christopher Gist, explorer, guide, and the man who taught Washington how to survive the frontier.
I hope you like that. Did you see the little video out there? That was my AI video that I made today. I'm getting good at it. Learning how to do all these things. I don't know why these things image. But anyhow, there are other books, as you can see. There's this one here, Life of Christopher Gist, and there's also this one here. If you haven't seen these books and you want to read more about Christopher Gist, check them out. So I hope no picture. Yeah, sorry, Skyboy. I guess I didn't see it. I'm too busy looking at the pictures trying to read the words. But yeah, they messed up some stuff here on the Streamlabs or Yard stuff. It used to be. Now I can't figure it all out. So I'm just trying to plunge through it tonight. They give these updates and they go, "Oh, we did something better," and I think they made it worse. Because usually I can just go to my thing. It says image file, and then I pick, and then I can scroll through it, and then you guys see it. So I don't know why it's doing that. So, hunky dory, aren't we? It's an awesome story about Washington. Yes, you know, George Washington has a lot of stories out there. I got a lot of books by George Washington. He is, yep. Thank you, Scotty Boy. Great video. Yep, I'm learning how to use that video stuff, and you can type it in and you use the AI, and it, you know, other people are doing stupid stuff like making bears jump through windows and fat people fall off cliffs and bounce on the water or something. But me, I'm making real Western history here, boys and girls. That's what I'm doing. Anyway, I got all this stuff, and then we're going to go back to here, and I should be able to get the thing up, and hopefully I can present. What is this? Share image. There we go. No, share screen. I want share screen. Nope. Why? Share screen. Maybe that's the one I'm looking for. And there we go. Lucky says, CSA men or Commonwealth, a group of British political thinkers who championed republicanism, liberty, and the limited government. Good job, Lucky. Thank you. Lucky, or Scotty Boy liked the videos. Great job. Thank you. Thank you. I worked hard at that. At least the AI helped me a lot. But we got the story up for tonight. The Boy in the Land of Shadows. Are you ready? Everybody get your guesses in for the cards tonight. Get them in now while the cards are smoking hot. I'm making my list and checking it twice, and we'll see who's naughty or nice. Remember, everybody, Thanksgiving is coming up, so get over there and get yourself one of these shirts. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to go back to this. Stop sharing. Okay, so if you haven't noticed, we got these great mugs. You got to go over to Nina's Streamlab store over there and get yourself one of these mugs. The mug says, Native American myths and legends, Robert and David, Hawkeye Two Feathers, the greatest storyteller on YouTube. And tonight, you, me, and everybody else gonna get to listen to the greatest storyteller on YouTube. Along with the shirt I'm wearing, you can get yourself a shirt, a mug. She's got holiday gear out there. And she's got shirts for R. Wayne Steiger. She's also got shirts for the Milky Way Soul Tribe. Get yourself something. Hey, send Hawkeye a early Christmas present. Get yourself a shirt and send him a mug. Oh, he's already got a mug, but get him a shirt. Send him another mug. What the heck, right? You can have a whole collection. And I'm sure he won't complain. There's hoodies, there's shirts. Look I got a long sleeve one. Well, you know why? Because it's cold in North Dakota. Yes, and you gotta have those long sleeve shirts. Who would ever thought that I would be saying, I need a long sleeve t-shirt?
And I do have my hoodie on, by the way.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, it's getting cold. Get his mug on a mug. Yeah, there you go. Get his mug on a mug. But yeah, that's right. You want to get Hawkeye a present for Christmas, get him he's got a hoodie, a mug. Get him a mug, a hoodie, a t-shirt. We'll let you know what size and then give him your address and you can just have
large.
He's a large. That's right. Get him a large and have it sent right to his house. And yep, David is.
So I hope you all are. I'll get to the story in a minute. I hope you all have chosen your animals. I will read them out as I have them. The first one out is crow upside down. The second is hummingbird right side up. It actually might be owl upside down because they kind of fell out together. So hummingbird and owl, but hummingbird's right side up and owl's upside down. The next card out was bat upside down. The next card up was turtle right side up. The next one out was buffalo right side up. The next one out was dragonfly upside down. The next card out was badger right side up. And the last card was raven upside down. So it's interesting. We've got crow at the beginning and raven at the end. Just okie dokie. So, but it's time for the story. And so that's what you've got to look forward to when I get done here. Let me pull up one.
Yes. Whenever you're ready, it's all yours.
All right, let me get my glasses on.
We had some good guesses tonight. What was it? Dragonfly. I think Lucky got Dragonfly, and so did Susie Q got Dragonfly. There you go. No owl, no bat, no turtle. Nope. No.
Yep, we got turtle.
Bat and turtle.
Yep, we had both of those. Yep.
Yeah.
So the story for tonight is called The Boy in the Land of Shadows. And I'm still reading from Glooskap's Country and Other Indian Tales by Cyrus Macmillan, 1922. The Boy in the Land of Shadows. 2 orphan children, a boy and a girl, lived alone near the mountains. Their parents had long been dead, and the children were left to look after themselves without any kindred upon the earth. The boy hunted all day long and provided much food, and the girl kept the house in order and did the cooking. They had a very deep love for each other, and as they grew up, they said, "We shall never leave each other. We shall always stay here together." But one year it happened that in the early springtime it was very cold. The snow lingered on the plains, and the ice moved slowly from the rivers, and chill winds were always blowing, and gray vapors hovered over all the land. And there was very little food to be had, for the animals hid in their warm winter dens, and the wild geese and ducks were still far south. And in this cruel period of bad weather, the little girl sickened and died. Her brother worked hard to provide her with nourishing food, and he gathered all the medicine roots he thought could bring her relief. But it was all to no purpose. And despite all his efforts, one evening in the twilight, his sister went away to the west, leaving him alone behind upon the earth. The boy was heartbroken because of his sister's death. And when the late spring came and the days grew warm and food was plentiful again, he said, "She must be somewhere in the west, for they say that our people do not really die. I will go and search for her, and perhaps I can find her and bring her back." So one morning he set out on his strange quest. He journeyed many days westward towards the great water, killing game for food as he went and sleeping at night under the stars. He met many strange people, but he did not tell them the purpose of his travels. At last he came to the shore of the great water, and he sat looking towards the sunset, wondering what to do next. In the evening, an old man came along. "What are you doing here?" asked the man. "I am looking for my sister," said the boy. "Some time ago she sickened and died, and I am lonely without her, and I want to find her and bring her back." And the man said, "Some time ago she whom you seek passed this way. If you wish to find her, you must undertake a dangerous journey." The boy answered that he would gladly risk any dangers to find his sister. And the old man said, "I will help you. Your sister has gone to the land of shadows, far away in the country of silence, which lies out yonder in the island of the blessed. To reach the island, you must sail far into the west, but I warn you that it is a perilous journey, for the crossing is always rough, and your boat will be tossed by tempests. But you will be well repaid for your trouble, for in that land nobody is ever hungry or tired. There is no death and no sorrow. There are no tears, and no one ever grows old." Then the old man gave the boy a large pipe and some tobacco and said, "This will help you in your need." And he brought him to where a small canoe lay dry upon the beach. It was a wonderful canoe. the most beautiful the boy had ever seen. It was cut from a single white stone, and it sparkled in the red twilight like a polished jewel. And the old man said, "This canoe will weather all storms, but see that you handle it carefully. And when you come back, see that you leave it in the cove where you found it." Soon afterwards, the boy set out on his journey. The moon was full and the night was cold with stars. He sailed into the west over a rough and angry sea, but he was in no danger, for his canoe rode easily on the waters. All around him he saw in the moonlight many other canoes going in the same direction, and all white and shining like his own. But no one seemed to be guiding them, and although he looked long at them, not a person could he make out. He wondered if the canoes were drifting unoccupied, for when he called to them, there was no answer. Sometimes a canoe upset in the tossing sea, and the waves rose over it, and it was seen no more. And the boy often thought he heard an anguished cry. For several days he sailed on to the west, and all the time other canoes were not far away, and all the time some of them were dropping from sight beneath the surging waters. But he saw no people in them. At last, after a long journey, the sea grew calm and the air was sweet and warm. There was no trace of the storm, for the waves were quiet and the sky was as clear as crystal. He saw that he was near the island of the blessed, of which the old man had spoken, for it was now plain to his view as it rose above the ocean, topped with green grass and trees and a snow-white beach. Soon he reached the shore and drew up his canoe. As he turned away, he came upon a skeleton lying flat upon the sand. He stopped to look at it, and as he did so, the skeleton sat up and said in great surprise, "You should not be here. Why have you come?" And the boy said, "I seek my sister. In the early springtime she sickened and died, and I am going to the land of shadows, in the country of silence, in search of her." "You must go far inland," said the skeleton, "and the way is hard to find for such as you." And the boy asked for guidance, and the skeleton said, "Let me smoke and I will help you." The boy gave him the pipe and the tobacco he had received from the old man, and he laughed when he saw his strange companion with the pipe between his teeth. The skeleton smoked for some time, and at last, as the smoke rose from his pipe, it changed to a flock of little white birds, which flew about like doves. The boy looked on in wonder, and the skeleton said, "These birds will guide you. Follow them." Then he gave back the pipe and stretched out again, flat upon the sand, and the boy could not rouse him from his sleep. The boy followed the little white birds as he had been told. He went along through a land of great beauty where the flowers were blooming and countless birds were singing. Not a person did he meet on the way. The place was deserted except for the songbirds and the flowers. He passed through the country of silence and came to a mysterious land where no one dwelt. But although he saw no one, he heard many voices, and he could not tell whence they came. They seemed to be all around him. At last the birds stopped at the entrance to a great garden and flew around his head in a circle. They would go no further, and they alighted on a tree close by, all except one, which perched on the boy's shoulder. The lad knew that here at last was the land of shadows. When he entered the garden, he heard again many low voices, but he saw no one. He saw only many shadows of people on the grass, but he could not see from what the shadows came. He wondered greatly at the strange and unusual sight, for back in his homeland in that time, the sunlight made no shadows. He listened again to the voices, and he knew now that the shadows were speaking. He wandered about for some time, marveling greatly at the strange place and with its weird, unearthly beauty. At last, he heard a voice which he knew to be his sister's. It was soft and sweet, just as he had known it when they were together on the earth, and it had not changed since she left him. He went to the shadow from which the voice came, and throwing himself on the grass beside it, he said, "I have long sought you, my sister. I have come to take you home. Let me see you as you were when we dwelt together." But his sister said, "You have done wisely to keep me in your memory and to seek to find me. But here we cannot appear to the people of earth except as shadows. I cannot go back with you, for it is now too late. I have eaten of the food of this land. If you had come before I had eaten, perhaps you could have taken me away. Who knows? But my heart and voice are unchanged, and I still remember my dear ones. And with unaltered love, I still watch my old home. And although I cannot go, to you, you can someday come to me. First, you must finish your work on earth. Go back to your home in the earth country. You will become a great chief among your people. Rule wisely and justly and well, and give freely of your food to the poor among the Indians, who have not as much as you have. And when your work on earth is done, you shall come to me in this land of shadows, beyond the country of silence, and we shall be together again, and our youth and strength and beauty will never leave us." And the boy, wondering greatly and in deep sorrow, said, "Let me stay with you now." But his sister said, "That cannot be." Then he said, I will give you a shadow which you must keep with you as your guardian spirit, and while you have it with you, no harm can come to you, for it will be present only in the light, and where there is light, there can be no wickedness. But when it disappears, you must be on your guard against doing evil, for then there will be darkness, and darkness may lead you wrong. So the boy took the shadow and said goodbye for a season, and set out on his homeward journey. The little white birds, which had waited for him in the trees, guided him back to the beach. His canoe was still there, but the skeleton man had gone, and there was not a trace of him to be found upon the sand. And the island of the blessed was silent, except for the songs of the birds and the ripple of the little streams. The boy embarked in his canoe and sailed towards the east. And as he pushed off from the beach, the little white birds left him and disappeared in the air. The sea was now calm, and there was no storm, as there had been on his outward journey. Soon he reached the shore on the other side. He left his canoe in the cove, as the old man had told him, and in a few days he arrived at his home, still bearing the shadow from the country of silence. He worked hard for many years, but he did no evil. And in the end, he became a great chief and did much good for his people. He ruled wisely and justly and well, as his sister had commanded him. Then, one day, when he was old and his work was done, he disappeared, and his people knew that he had gone to join his sister in the land of shadows, in the country of silence, far away, somewhere in the west. But he left behind him the shadow his sister had given him. And while there is light, the Indians still have their shadow, and no harm can come to them. For where there is light, there can be no evil. But always in the late autumn, the shadows of the Indian brother and sister in the country of silence are lonely for their former life, and they think of their living friends and of the places of their youth, and they wish once more to follow the hunt, for they know that the hunter's moon is shining. And when their memory dwells with longing on their earlier days, their spirits are allowed to come back to earth for a brief season from the land of shadows. Then the winds are silent and the days are very still, and the smoke of their campfires appears like haze upon the air. And the men call this season Indian summer, but it is really but a shadow of the golden summer that is gone. And it always is a reminder to the Indians that in the land of shadows, far away in the country of silence in the west, there are no dead. The end. And it looks like it's the end of the book. So that was the last story, my friends, in the
Oh my
book.
gosh, we gotta get a whole new book. Holy cow! No more Glooscap.
Yeah, so finally, after all this time, that was the last story. So the
Yep.
shadow that was brought back.
Yep.
So I'll have to
Where?
look. I'll have to look through those other books you sent me and find another one.
That's right. Joanne says, I've always wondered where David finds all these stories. It intrigues me. Well, he's going to have to find a whole new book. And if you want that book or any other of these books, if you want Glooscap's Country, I have the PDFs of all the books. Send me an email and I will attach it and send it out to you, and you can read all these stories yourself. So there you go. Seems like we just started this book. Scotty boy, where have you been? Hey, remember, get the merch here. Remember, we're all wearing these nice shirts and drinking out of these nice mugs. It's getting that time of year to have yourself a nice cup of hot tea or coffee, in the colder months, and maybe make some hot chocolate. Man, that sounds really good, hot chocolate. So get yours today. Order one up and buy it for a friend. Christmas season's coming up. You also, Nina's got all the holiday specials too. There's lots of holiday out there. Get that Milky Way Soul Tribe shirts. There's also our Wayne Steiger shirts, and of course the Ana Karana. Don't forget that. That's the main staple of it all. So with that, get yours today, especially the holiday ones. Limited time on them, and they will be gone. Because, hey, holidays only last for a little while. Let's see. Elderberry says Robert is a bookworm. Yep. There you go. Yeah, there's a big. Did you hear there's a big solar storm going on? Maybe if the sky is clear, you can see the aurora tonight. So it's going to be a good one. At least that's what they're saying. So get outside, check it out. Maybe you too can see the aurora. And there's nothing like seeing the aurora. It is amazing. Yep. And Nina says, don't worry. We will be on our Wayne Steiger show on Friday. That's right. Friday afternoon at noon or whatever it is. It'd be noon Central Time, or various other times. But anyway, we will be there and with Wayne discussing all kinds of great things. Check us out Friday afternoon. Okay, that's what Susie. I wish I could keep attention on the book. But short stories are great. Yes, short stories are great. Yep. Nina says Streamlab takes all kinds of payments. Yep. Whatever money you got, they will take. Just like the government. Anyway, short stories are good. I'm downloaded a whole bunch, so sooner or later, all those Milky Way shorts with David reading the native things, you can hear them all over again. There's a playlist on my channel here where you can go and just click the button and hear story after story after story without us blabbering. It's all cut down, chopped down. All the breaks and chip chop is taken out, and you can listen to it over and over and over. Every tale you'd ever want to hear. So, with that said, all righty, we're going to get into I got to get on the ball here. We got all kinds of animals coming up. Cards have been pulled already, so you didn't get your guesses in. Well, you are out of luck because they're already pulled. And we got owl and hummingbird and
bat.
Yes, bat
And dragonfly.
And dragonfly.
And turtle.
Oops.
And buffalo. and raven.
I can't take that fence.
I know I was going a little fast, but so while you're looking for those others, I'm going to start off with crow.
Oh, crow. That's one of them too, isn't it?
Yep, crow.
I thought we had
And
raven.
yeah, and raven's the last one. Yep, we got both of them in this spread. That's what I was saying.
Oh,
We've got crows at the beginning and ravens at the tail end. So interesting.
that is.
So the medicine story of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at her shadow and scratching at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Just interesting. We just had a story about shadow. So then Crow's shadow ate her. And Crow is dead Crow now. So dead Crow is the left-handed guardian. If you look deeply into Crow's eye, you have found the gateway to the supernatural. Crow knows the unknowable mysteries of creation and is the keeper of all sacred law. But now Crow's upside down. So if Crow's upside down, one of the varied messages of Crow reversed is, are you an outlaw today? The rebel in you may have given you a yell. So are we being rebellious? You know, this card's for all of us. If you don't plan to go to extremes, Crow reverse may indicate that you are merely cheating a little bit on your diet, or cheating a little bit with not doing all your homework, or doing a little bit of something. And seeing what is true, you may need to weed out your past beliefs or ideas to bring yourself into the present moment. In other words, too much stuff that, you know, is like do spring cleaning. Refusing to honor the shifts in your reality can cause emotional pain. An implosion of energy is apparent when rebellion surfaces. So, upside down Crow is being rebellious, remember. Contrary Crow speaks of broken law. The law of expansion is broken by suppression. This may apply to a situation like an old habit, or it could be that your own fears. It is always your own creation. So, whatever it is, call on Crow and shift that creation to your new reality. So, as you know, there are many folks that say that, you know, and it's true, we create our own reality, we create our own movie. So, this upside down Crow is saying, hey, it's time to shift gears, right? So now Owl is the next one up, and it's number 21 in the book. And it too is upside down. And Owl is about deception. Now, I pulled the Owl card, and it kind of came out with Hummingbird. So Owl is about deception. So Owl is a symbol of wisdom. And it's because Owl can see that which others cannot see, which is the essence of true wisdom. But if Owl's upside down, you have been greatly deceived by yourself or somebody else. Perhaps witchcraft or black magic is being used against you. Let's hope that ain't true. If for some reason you feel that you're being um, selected by somebody else, you should pray to the Great Spirit for guidance. This message is to befriend the darkness inside you. Look deeply, and soon the bright light of dawn will illuminate you. Then ask yourself, what are you in the dark about? So, you know, are any of us in the dark about anything? So we should be careful that we don't get stuck in the dark. Um, and so the next card up is Hummingbird, which is number 44 in the book. And then the next card is that, which is number 42, I'm looking at right now, which is Rebirth. So Hummingbird is joy. So Hummingbird came out with joy, came out with the owl. So the upside down owl is, be careful not to be deceived, and, to look around. But Hummingbird is like, it's all about the joy of things. So because of their magical qualities, hummingbird feathers have been used for all kinds of charms. If hummingbird is your personal medicine, you love life and its joys. Your presence brings joy to others. You join people together in relationships, which brings out the best in them. You know instinctively where beauty abides, and near or far, you journey to your ideal. So hummingbird being straight up is all about the song of joy. The the medicine of flowers sings a vibration of pure joy. Flowers love hummingbird because of the nectar, but plants and flowers live because of hummingbird. So upside down owl, you know, stay out of the darkness, but hummingbird saying, there's joy out there. And 42 is bat, and it's rebirth. So it seems that, hummingbirds got some joy around, and owl is saying use the wisdom of what you know up to this point, and that is the rebirth. So it means that, in order to receive the joy, you've got to you've got to rebirth yourself. You got to look inside and get rid of the those basic things that are cluttering up your life. The basic idea of ancient initiations was to break down all the former notions of the self that were held by the shaman to be. And so you have to break down those walls within yourself. And so that the ritual death of the healer, is steeped in secrets and highly involved initiation. But what it means, it's a symbolic death of the old ways of life and of personal identity. So, you could sit in a cardboard box and turn the lights off in a room and, feel that that is your isolation. And the rebirth is the rebirth into joy. And to make sure that you're not being deceived by some shadow in the darkness that might be affecting you. Now, the next card up, I'm not quite sure because I shuffled them. But the next card up, I'm going to say is Dragonfly. No, and they're telling me no. The next card up is Badger. Uh-oh, I lost the screen. Badger's number 29. Badger's aggressiveness. So whenever we need to be aggressive about something, and I would suggest that it's about the aggressiveness is about um, having the rebirth. In other words, get on with it. Hummingbird is full of joy and wants to bring it to you, and Bat says, you know, we got to have some rebirth here to make room. And Badger's like, you know, it's aggressive. Got to get her done. So now the next card up is 27, which is Dragonfly. So I can see where Badger came first. Dragonfly is the illusion. So Badger's like, okay, you know, be aggressive with what you're doing, but do not get caught in the dream time of the illusion. And so Dragonfly is the essence of the winds of change, the messages of wisdom and enlightenment. So that goes back to the owl with wisdom. And so Dragonfly is don't get caught in the illusion, right? If Dragonfly has flown into your cards, you may have forgotten to water your plants. So it may be that you have, you know, have created an illusion that, you know, and in which that you have forgotten to water your plants. So the next card up is Turtle, right side up. Now Turtle is about Turtle Island and Mother Earth. So Turtle has a shell which is similar to the protection of the earth. If you've chosen the turtle symbol, you are being asked to honor the creative source within you. So here's Dragonfly saying, don't get caught in the illusion. But here's Turtle saying that you should honor that creative side within you, which is a good thing. So maybe you're not being creative enough. Maybe the rebirth is that you have to get back to being creative again. So, and that makes sense. And in the Dragonfly of the illusion, you know, don't get caught in some crazy illusion. Somebody says, oh, well, you should, you know, you should try this, when trying that is not really what you should be doing. So whatever that is that they want you to try. So the next card up is number 19, Buffalo. And number 19 so is prayer and abundance. And the card is straight up. So that's a good sign. So you've got, you know, Turtle saying, you know, that maybe you should be more creative again. Don't get caught in the illusion. You know, Bat's like, we need to go into some rebirth. And Buffalo is bringing you prayer and abundance. All animals are sacred, but in many traditions, the white buffalo is the most sacred. So buffalo was the major source of sustenance for the Plains Indians. So it gave them everything that they needed. So in a way, buffalo was a giveaway. It was honored and sacred in all respects. To use buffalo medicine is to smoke the pipe in a sacred manner and to give praise for the richness of life to be shared by all races, all creatures, all nations, and all of life. It means smoking for others so that their needs are met, praying for the good of all things in harmony, and accepting the great mystery as part of that harmony. So Buffalo is bringing in these cards here and talking about harmony, you know, and Turtle is um, talking about Mother Earth and the connection. And Turtle is a fine teacher in the art of grounding. So you've got Buffalo bringing, the art of abundance and prayer. So in um, um, Turtle is asking you to honor the creative source within you, and to be grounded toward the earth. So, say thank you to the Creator and for the abundance that has been given. And the next card up is Raven, upside down, number 16 in the book here. We've had no canines in this. And Raven is about magic. And Raven has carried the medicine of magic. Um, Raven magic is a powerful medicine that can give you the courage to enter into the darkness of the void, which is sort of where Dragonfly, can reside. So, in native teachings, the color black means many things, but it does not mean evil. So, um, contrary Raven is not to be taken lightly. That can mean that a boomerang effect is coming home to you. In other words, if you've wished ill on somebody else, that illness can come back and slap you hard. But if you've not been doing that, and some people, you should be careful. It's like, I hate that son of a bitch. One of these days, something's going to be careful. You don't mumble something under your breath about somebody. Contrary Raven may also portend a time of smoky or confused messages, because your intellect is insisting that magic is not real. So, in other words, you may be getting messages from the universe, and you're not listening because you don't believe that what you're hearing in your head could actually be your spirit guides. So um, you need to block any negative energy is coming your way. But it looks like in these cards, Raven to me in this is warning us that there might be something negative coming, but we should just keep an eye on it. Um, Raven is the patron of smoke signals or spirit messages, represented by smoke. So an upside down raven can mean that the messages from the smoke are clouded in an odd way. Turtle, make sure that you're grounded. Badger is all about being aggressive. So make sure that, you don't linger on these things. Bat, remember, is rebirth. Owl is, make sure that you're not being deceived. So these look like pretty decent cards, for those folks who might need to look inside to make more room. This is going into winter time, and this is the time when inner reflection, um, it's not necessarily, it's the time of the season. It's cold outside, you're huddled up against the fire, and and you're watching the fire or candlelight or something, and it's easy to reflect. So use that time to do so, but don't get stuck in it. Stay grounded.
Stay grounded. I like it. Good cards tonight. Good cards tonight. Good guesses, everyone. I think it was all good. They're talking about, I ate some bison hamburger. It was great. Yep. Bison burgers are great. Elderberry, you're going to get a buffalo somewhere. As I know, Ranch 200, Red Buffalo Ranch. Red Buffalo Ranch. Okay. Cool. Cool. It's nice to have a buffalo. Buffalo are good. It's illegal to have a raven as a pet here in the United States. They might teach you. So it's illegal to have a raven as a pet. Why is that? I wonder.
There are people who have crows for friends, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I think that goes with a lot of wild birds, but there are some birds that seem to want to be more friendly than others, you know?
That is true. And parrots who talk. You can teach them to say bad words. That should be legal too.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Well, there we go. There's super smart minor birds. Minna birds? I don't know what that is.
Minor birds, yeah.
Oh, he spelled it wrong.
And then there's major birds.
Yeah, minors and majors. I love it. So anyway, good cards tonight. Good cards tonight. Let's see, what do we got? Okay, I'm going to be on with Nina and on Wayne's show on Friday. And do you have a show tonight going on? How you doing?
Maybe.
Gonna have a cup of coffee and do a show.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm kind of tired, so we'll see.
Maybe not a long one. Okay. Scotty Boy says, great show. Thank you, guys. And Nina says, see you all on Friday. Nina says that turtle will sound so good, she's going to have some turtle soup. Never had turtle soup. So that could be an experience. I don't know. Some people say it's real good, and other people say, yeah. Lovely show. Susie Q's here. We'll give a big shout out to everybody. Scotty Boy. Joanne, Dancing Gypsy, thank you. Thank you, Susie Q, Nina the Mystic. Let's see who else is here. Elderberry. What's up? And Lucky Stone. This is Lucky Stone come to join us tonight. And let's see who else has been here. There was somebody else here too, and I don't know, whoever is listening. Oh yeah, Midwest Mania Outdoors, Justin James. Thank you, Justin James, for stopping in tonight. All is good. Yep. Witchy Moon, I think, joined us for a little while there. I know a lot of people can't stay for the whole 2 hours, but stay and tune in for what you can. That's what I always say. And get the parts that you like. It's either the news or the history, or it is for the great stories, one or the other. I don't know who's more popular, but if you think one's more popular, that's all right too. I don't care. Oh, I make a beautiful soup, Gene Wilder.
And the good news is, that we stick to a basic, for the first hour, we're yakking about, the topic of the night. And then usually at about an hour in, we do the story. And then right after that is the card. So, if somebody can't get in for part of it, they can fast forward to the story or the cards. So,
That's right. Yep.
There is that.
There's always that. Well, with that, we usually sign off at the 2 hour mark, believe it or not. We're going to hit the 2 hour mark. And with that, everyone, go out and do something nice for somebody. We're gonna Thanksgiving's coming up, and remember to go out and do that. Remember to go buy yourself a nice shirt. Buy one for you or buy one for somebody else. It's all good either way you look at it. And remember, most important to all is to go out, be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.